we'd be working on leave, I guess, but that's fine. And I think it's because I agreed to do this seminar before I planned my leave. So rather than just cancel, I wanted to go ahead and honor that. And hopefully we can have a good session today.
Yeah, sure. I'll go to.
Right. Thank you for sparing your busy time for having session with us.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. So yeah, it's good to see everyone. And yeah, I can see my old colleague there, Celestia. How are you?
Oh, hello, Peter.
Oh, how are you
Do
going?
you recognize me?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, no, I'm actually Celestia Ningtyas. I'm not Suli.
Oh, but you look exactly.
That's her twin.
It's nice to meet you. We
Right?
actually met a couple of years ago, I think, in 2018.
Yeah.
When
It's
I'm
like
at-
meeting a
yeah.
mirror.
Yes. So we actually met in 2018 when I was attending my twin sister's graduation ceremony, if you remember me.
Yeah, got it. Wow. Yeah, that's you look absolutely like
I see.
that's really thrown me off, but well, yeah, good time.
Yeah. She is now attending a conference actually in Malaysia.
Very busy.
Yes. She actually registered to this program, but I'm afraid she cannot join the meeting today.
Not a problem. She'll be there in spirit, I guess. That's fine. Very good. The first two sessions was Robbie, and then yesterday, who was it?
Andresa.
Great. And as you said, you've had a pretty good turnout, about 100 attendees so far on average, so that's good. Lots of interest on social media. So yeah, congratulations for organizing this series, and maybe it could be a regular thing.
Hopefully, yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Peter, do you want to try sharing your screen and moving your slide perhaps just to
Yeah.
check?
I'll try that now.
Okay, we see
Everything
your
good?
screen. It's visible.
So I'll be switching back and forth between PowerPoints and the web application. So
Yes. No worries.
I probably won't need to go full screen at all. And today we're going to go through the BAWE corpus on Sketch Engine. I'll just spend a couple of minutes on MICUS, just in case people are interested in that. And then the Corpus Make platform, just take people through the basics of each one in terms of concordancing options and frequency lists and some of the different things that you can do with those.
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, let me say hi to other participants here.
Okay.
So we have lots of participants here. Let me say hi to Zhu. Zhu Xiaozong, I hope I'm pronouncing the names correctly. Hi, Abdul Hakim, sending a warm greeting on chat. Akram, Yusria, Asma, okay, Jingyi, and my colleague Wiputra.
Hello.
Andrew. Hello, Wiputra. You all right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Where are you connecting from? Jakarta, or are you in another city?
Yes, Jakarta, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending first two sessions and today's session. Hopefully you can attend fully up to day 5.
Oh, sir, I recognize there is a comment from Abdul Hakim. So, Abdul Hakim, can you open your mic?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello,
so
everyone.
I recognize you from Arizona, USA.
So it's almost 1 a.m. in Arizona, USA. So sometimes I have to
Apologies
leave a
for the
little bit
time
early.
difference.
No problem, no problem. It's the summer, so I have lots of time. So thank you for the sessions.
So are you a student?
No, I'm not a student. I teach at the University of Arizona. I'm a lecturer.
Your lecture. So how was the 3-day sessions in this course?
I have some training in corpus linguistics, but I'm interested in, that's not my cup of tea, but I'm trying to learn more about corpus linguistics. I have a PhD in applied linguistics.
Oh, so it will be interesting and insightful for us. Thank
Yeah, I would like to take some courses in applied corpus linguistics soon. So I'm trying to learn more about it right now in preparation for my coursework, more serious coursework in the future, near future.
Oh yeah, that's all good information for you and for
Okay,
us.
thank you so much.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you
enjoy
so
the
much for
course.
this. Okay.
Okay, I see a familiar name here. Austin, can you hear me, Austin?
Yes, yes. Good morning or good afternoon, good evening, not Peggy.
Are you connecting from USA or from Jakarta?
Even though, yeah, I recently returned to the United States, so I'm back
okay.
home.
So everyone, Austin is a Fulbright researcher who spent some time in Undip, yeah, working with me on Semarangan language.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should
It's
talk
great
about
to
that
be here.
later, Austin.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Thank you
Thank you.
for joining in this session.
Of course, yes. Thanks for the opportunity.
May I start the session?
Yes, you may.
Hello everyone, welcome to this call in 2023, day 3. My name is Rozana Argandari as host with my partner Sini Nurrohma. We will be the hosts for you in today's sessions. We thank you for your enthusiasm and patience during the first 2 days of this call in 2023. And we are hoping that you are going to participate in all the sessions up to day 5. We received numbers of questions after the sessions, and we have forwarded the questions to our keynote speakers. They have already replied, and we have forwarded the answers to you. If you are the ones who send these questions, please check your email or WhatsApp or whatever media you use to ask these questions.
All right, before we start our session for today, let me summarize to you what we have learned for the last 2 days. In day 1, we have learned how to devise a corpus-based research question. We have also been introduced to a number of office query system by Dr. Robila from Aston University, United Kingdom. In day 2, we have learned how to write various queries in CTP Web with Dr. Andressa Gomide from University Coimbra, Portugal. And on this session, we will learn corpus query technique with Dr. Peter Crosswhite from University of Queensland. Let me say hello again to Dr. Peter Crosswhite. Hello, Peter. Are you ready to share your knowledge to us today?
Yes, I am. I've been looking forward to it and I'm ready to start.
All right, great. So before we start our session for today, can we all take picture together with our esteemed keynote speaker? So for all participants, we please you to open your camera so that we can take a picture together. Right, we're still waiting for some people to open their camera.
If you guys there is a problem, you can chat on the chat room, please.
All right. I think we can start it now. So please give your greatest smile. Then okay, let me start from slide 1. 1, 2, 3. All right, move to slide 2. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you everyone for opening your camera, and then if you want to off your camera, that's okay, but if you want to remain open your camera, that will be great.
Thank you very much, Cindy, and thank you very much, Dr. Peter Crosswhite. Before I hand over the session to you, allow me to read your CV first. Okay, we can see the screen. So Dr. Peter White is a senior lecturer in the School of Languages and Cultures at the University of Queensland, Australia, since 2017. Formerly assistant professor at the Centre for Applied English Studies, or CAES, University of Hong Kong since 2014. He holds an MA/TESOL from the University of London and an MPhil and PhD in Applied Linguistics from the University of Cambridge, UK. His areas of research and supervisory expertise include corpus linguistics and the use of corpora for language learning, or known as data-driven learning, as well as computer-assisted language learning and English for general and specific academic purposes. He has published over 50 articles that in leading Q1 journals and has authored a number of books published internationally. He also served as associate editor for a number of Q1 journals. If you want to know more about him, you can consult his CV or contact his via emails. Now, I will hand over the session to Dr. Peter Crosswhite. Dr. Peter Crosswhite, over to you now.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction, and thanks to Pri and the organizing team for inviting me to present on understanding concordancy and frequency information across registers and disciplines. So I've got kind of set the PowerPoint slides prepared, but the PowerPoint slides themselves are really just bare bones, and I'll be switching between these slides and the three applications that I'd like to demonstrate to you this afternoon. I'm going to be using the sketch engine, or at least what's termed the open or free version of sketch engine, which has some publicly available corpora. We're going to be primarily using the British Academic Written English corpus, which is a corpus that I have a lot of experience with, and it features in a number of my online corpus training materials, which I will link to you towards the middle and end of the session in the chat. So if there's anything that you aren't sure about today, you can go ahead and check those online materials at the time of your choice. And that includes some online and corpus-based lesson planning materials, or a whole course that teaches you the basics of corpora for improving academic writing. I'll also briefly show you the MyCus interface, which is a neat platform that allows you to do some concordancing across text types and disciplinary areas, such as the arts and humanities and sciences and so on. And that's something we're also going to do with the British Academic Written English corpus. And towards the end of the period, I'm going to be introducing a fairly new tool called Corpus Mate that was developed by myself and Dr. Vit Beiser, who was also one of the lead developers of the Sketch Engine platform. And you may have also heard of the Sketch Engine for Language Learning platform and the Versatext platform by Professor James Thomas. So that's just a little bit of information there about what we're doing today. I'd just like to start, as is customary, with presentations, whether they're done here on campus or whether they're done online, just in terms of acknowledging the traditional owners. By this, we mean the Indigenous peoples of Australia, where I'm currently living in Queensland, in Brisbane. It's the Yagara and Turrbal people. We pay our respects to their ancestors and descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections to country. And I'd like to especially recognize their valuable contributions to Australian and global society. So you got the chance at the beginning of my introduction to see my CV, which I actually didn't realize that we're going to be sharing that on the screen. So that was quite amusing. But a little bit about me. I'm currently senior lecturer and program coordinator of the MA Applied Linguistics at the University of Queensland, which I think in last week's world rankings is something like world 47 now in the world, which we're very pleased about. And we hope to make that even higher in the years to come. In terms of my research work, as they mentioned previously, I published a fair amount in the 10 years since my PhD, graduating from Cambridge, over 50 journal articles now, most of these in the top ranked journals in the field, a few scholarly books and textbook series as well. And I'm currently the associate editor of the Journal of English for Academic Purposes and sit on the editorial boards of IRAL System and a new journal called Applied Corpus Linguistics, which I hope to see some of the people here in the audience publish in that journal in the not so distant future. So that's just a little bit there about me. Now, Corpus Linguistics itself, for those of you who are new to the field, and I think that a number of you in the audience are new to Corpus Linguistics, and this is something that you decided to devote a week to learn about. Corpus Linguistics research has had a long and storied history within applied linguistics more generally, and the study here that I published with Celeste's twin sister, who's in the audience, came out last year, which is a bibliometric analysis of research trends in corpus linguistics. You get by looking at this image here on the screen, you get an idea of how varied and diverse corpus linguistics research is across not just applied linguistics, but other areas of research, including phonetics, psycholinguistics, translation, vocabulary, discourse studies, news discourse, interaction, SLA, world Englishes, anywhere where language data needs to be analyzed at scale, and where insights from that language data can be extracted using corpus tools, corpus linguistics has a place. And I think that corpus linguistics has kind of reaching a peak in terms of its spread. And now that language data is kind of trendy again, given the recent advent of generative AI, by understanding how language data works and some of the insights that we can get from that is a really valuable skill in the current year. So well done to everybody for signing up for this course today, which is going to take you through the basics of some of freely available corpus tools and ones that maybe have been a little bit different from the ones that you may have seen on the previous two sessions. So just an outline of today's schedule. As mentioned, I'm going to be looking at concordancing in Sketch Engine with the British Academic Written English and maybe just also spend a minute on the British Academic Spoken English Corpora. Also have a look at how to generate frequency lists in that platform, which is really quite straightforward, and using an additional function which is unique to Sketch Engine called the word sketch function, word sketch difference functions, and let you have a play with those. Then briefly look at the MyCUFS platform to look at concordancing across the disciplines before we get into my CorpusMate platform. And then if we still have time left over after that, then we'll jump into some Q&A. So we're going to play around, first of all, with the Sketch Engine open platform. And for this, I'm just going to type in the link here into the chat so that you can all access the same platform that I am seeing here. Do let me know if you're having any problems accessing that. But the link that I posted there takes you straight to the British Academic Written English Corpus. I'm also just going to post a secondary link here that just actually lets you see what I'm seeing here, which is the list of freely available corpora that are possible for query using the Sketch Engine, the free version of Sketch Engine. So what you're looking at here is basically the dashboard for the Sketch Engine platform. And the Sketch Engine is primarily a paid service, but there are a number of corpora that are freely available due to various funding arrangements between particular researchers, particular corpus builders, and Sketch Engine team. For example, there is a Chinese learner corpus that you can see here. No Indonesian corpora currently available for free, although I believe there are a number of Indonesian corpora featured in the paid version of the Sketch Engine platform. So do check that out. That's something that you're interested in looking at in the future. A number of English corpora, including the written academic and the spoken academic corpora that we're going to be playing with today. A very large COVID-19 open research data set there in the billion word level, and then a number of other corpora in various European languages. So today we're going to play, first of all, though, with the British Academic Written English Corpus, the BAWE, and I'm just going to click open to load that up. So what we can see here now are a number of different functions, and the first thing that we're going to explore here, and again, I'm just going to bring up here the information so I don't miss anything, but we're going to look at conducting basic searches, then have a look at some advanced search options, take you through some of the view options, sample, sort, and filter, and then a kind of unique function called the Good Dictionary Examples function. And I'll explain in a moment what all that means. But essentially here, I'm just taking you through the basic concordancing functions of Sketch Engine so that you've got an idea about what is available and what we can do. So for this, we're just going to click concordance, and we're going to conduct a simple search. So remember that this is an academic written English corpus. So when you're thinking about what you might want to query, what are some of the questions that you might want to ask of an academic corpus of writing. And once you've got those questions in mind, then you begin to have an idea about the kind of things that you might want to query this corpus for, the kind of results that you think you might be able to receive, the kind of results that you don't get, from such a corpus, and then what that might mean in terms of, is the query that I'm generating actually representative of academic written English? If not, what do I learn from understanding that? So what we're going to do, first of all, as I said, is just search for an academic term. In this case, let's pick maybe data. It's a pretty simple search. Type in a single word. There's also a video here which takes you through some of the concordancing for beginners. But for now, we're just going to ignore that and jump into the search. And you can see here, I've got a fair amount of information. I got a question just in the chat from Dr. Salma. So hello there, I know where you work. And do we need to log into the Sketch Engine? The answer is no, if you follow the links that I just gave you. So here I've got some basic information about the term data in this corpus. I can see that the number of hits in this corpus is just under 5,000 in the 6 or close to 7 million word corpus. And that this has a so-called normalized frequency then of 597.51 hits per million tokens. And I believe that in some of the previous sessions in this dip scoring program, you'll understand already the difference between raw frequency and normalized frequency. But just to remind you that the raw hits is just simply the amount of times that that word appears in the corpus. But then if I'm working with multiple corpora or perhaps subcorpora within the same corpus, which we're actually going to have a play with today, if you want to compare frequencies across different corpora, it's best to use the normalized frequency rather than the raw frequency, because this then gives us a better idea about how to compare frequencies across corpora of different sizes. But again, I think you will have discussed that in previous 2 sessions. So I've got here my data. It's showing me 20 concordances per page. But remember that there were 4,981 spanning over 250 pages there. Probably a little more than we need, or probably a lot more than we need. You can see that the data is presented in the so-called quick format, which is short for keyword in context. And by this, we mean that the data, the word data that I was looking for appears in the middle of the screen within the concordance itself, together with some context to the left and context to the right. I can also get some information using this Sketch Engine platform about the genre behind which any individual concordance appears. For example, I know that this is taken from an essay, this is taken from a critique, this is taken from a research report, and I do have the option later to conduct searches using the advanced search tools, and that will allow me to search within these different genres. I can also sort the data by the left context, and clicking this will allow me to do that in alphabetical order. However, it usually starts with the punctuation first before you get to A. So I'm just going to take that sort option out. And luckily, I can go back to my original search quite easily just by pressing the cross here. That'll take me back to where I was before. And then I can also do the same thing there with the right context. But again, because I've got so many results, it's putting the punctuation first. And that's just a kind of issue, I guess, with the way that Sketch Engine sorts left and right context. And more recent Corpus tools, for example, Lawrence Anthony's AntComp program, as well as my own CorpusMate tool, have taken a slightly different approach to the way that the concordances are ordered on the screen when you first see them, and the way that you can sort by left and right context. But I'll come to that later. So that was some of the basic sort patterns. I look for the term data. And now we're going to go through some of the different options here. A few years ago now, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, Sketch Engine made an overhaul of their user interface, and they replaced the kind of text that explained what the function was with these symbols, which actually makes it a little bit harder to actually understand what each one of these things do. But I'm going to start from here, the view options, and take you through some of the different options available. And then as I'm doing this, I'll also get you to have a play with some of these yourself. But for now, just try to follow what I'm doing with the same search here, data. So I'm going to click view options. And I've got quite a lot of different options here. Right now, I'm searching for words, but I could also switch to the lemma. And hopefully in the first 2 presentations, they explain what lemma was, but basically a lemma is what we call the basic form of a word, and then other forms are variants on that lemma. So we give an example of the verb run. Run is the base form, and then ran is part of that, but it's not classed as the lemma. But when you search for lemma, it will come up with all of the different variants of that particular word. So it will come up with run, and then ran, and then running, and the different variants will appear. I could also search for part of speech tags, words in lowercase, lemmas in lowercase, lots of different options here, potentially more options than we need. But that's just something there that you might want to check out. Then we're also going to look at the sampling and filtering options. This is because in my data, the search for data, I've got here close to 5,000 hits, which is probably a lot to be working with. I may not need this many to begin to understand some of the things that are happening with this term, like what are the words that come before data, what are the words that come after data, does data come in the middle of a sentence, does it come towards the end of the sentence? These are some of the things that concordances can help you to understand. But with 5,000 concordances is probably too many to work with. So by clicking here on the question mark box, I can get a random sample here. And the random sample, as they explain here in the instructions, is used to reduce the number of concordance lines while also preserving the representativeness of the sample. The number of lines will be randomly selected from all parts of the corpus. So if I'm going to click here and just use the default for 200, this will then reduce the number of concordances from 5,000 to 200. And then the chances are that if I'm showing this data to a group of language students, for example, that looking at 200 concordances is going to give me the same kind of insights that looking at 5,000 concordances will give me. But it will be much easier to follow 200 than trying to get through all 5,000. So you can do this simply by clicking Go. I now have my random sample from the corpus. I now also see that because I'm using a smaller data set, that the normalized frequency of this term within my sample has now changed from 597 per million tokens now to 23.99 because I'm working now with a smaller corpus. But now I've got this, you can see here that the number of rows per page will now fit quite happily on a 200 row option. And you can extend the number of rows per page displayed by just clicking here on the drop down. You can click 200, and now this is every single concordance in my random sample. And I've now got this data available for query for whatever purpose that I might want to do. Maybe I want to use these in teaching materials. Maybe I want to do some discourse analysis of academic writing. Maybe I want to look at the way that the word data is used in different genres or across different disciplines, depending on your research question. So I've now got the ability to download that sample, maybe in the form of a CSV file for my research. Maybe I can load this into R, the statistical package, for some natural language processing applications. Or maybe I want to save it as a PDF. I can click this. The CSV then loads up in my folder. And now I've got my random sample of 200 concordances, some information about the genre in which the term appeared, the left context here, which is a little squashed. If I just extend that a little bit, the keyword in context, and the right context. So if I need to use this data set for any purpose, it's readily producible at the click of a button, which is fairly useful. So that was the sample function. So far, so good. Let's have a look now at an alternative, which was the shuffle lines function. And by default, the concordance lines are always shown in the same order as they are found in the corpus. For example, one of the weaknesses of generative AI, for example, is that whenever you enter a query into generative AI program like ChatGPT, you will get slightly different results every time. One of the strengths of Corpus, however, is that by entering the same query into the same Corpus platform, you should get the same result every time. Therefore, that result is replicable and useful for research purposes. However, if you're not interested in that and you would like the concordances to be randomized in that way, I can click the shuffle button, and I will now have a slightly different order of concordances in my sample than the one that would be originally generated. Could be useful, particularly with a smaller sample. Then the sort function. We already had the ability to click left context and right context, but I also here have the ability to sort concordance lines alphabetically to the left or to the right. To do this, I can simply click on the number. Clicking on the number 1 will sort all of the concordances by the left context to the word immediately to the left of the target word, which in this case is data. Similarly, I could also do this to the right context by clicking 1. I could also sort not the next word, but the word after the right context alphabetically by clicking 2, which in some cases you might wish to do. And if I wanted to get really complex, I could add multiple sorting criteria, but we're not going to get into that today. Another function, which I'll briefly show you before letting you try some of this, is the filter function. And here I can keep terms, but start to get rid of concordances that I don't necessarily need. So if I want to keep data suggest, for example, then I can use the filter function, and then the concordance lines will be kept, but they must contain term suggest somewhere in the concordance. And concordances that do not contain the term suggest are therefore removed. This is an alternative to using collocation tools, which I think that you're going to be dealing with in later sessions in this program. But certainly, I could then apply an additional filter to this, maybe keeping the data suggest that. And now concordances must have suggest and that in order to remain in my data set. So a pretty useful tool there if you're interested in seeing concordances that contain multiple words. And again, any of these additional options can be removed simply by clicking them out. The final basic function I'd like to show you in Sketch Engine is called Good Dictionary Examples. And this is shown here by the button that says GDEX, GDEX. And this uses some natural language processing techniques and some text analytics to filter the concordances so that the simplest concordances in terms of sentence length, context, a range of coherence and cohesion data, vocabulary profiles, and so on. All of this kind of information is used to then only choose the concordances that might be suitable primarily for language teaching and language learning. So by clicking on GDEX here, I'm going to keep everything as a default. This includes the number of lines to be sorted. Just going to press go. And you can see here now that the concordances that I'm looking at shown in sentence form here are ordered in terms of the simplest concordance first. Starting here, the shortage is the slow data rate. Data from questionnaires were entered onto a spreadsheet. We need to understand why data protection is so important, and so on. And these are the basic functions of Sketch Engine. So don't forget also that one of the main or best things about Corpora is that we can search for more than one word. For example, I might want to search for a phrase, or I might want to use a wildcard. This will then allow me to see all hits that contain the term the data, followed by the next word. And then we can start to get into frequency list information now. I already mentioned previously about the difference between raw and normalized frequencies. Let's have a think now about generating frequency lists in this corpus. And to do this, we're going to just click here the frequency button. This brings up a range of options. There are basic functions and advanced functions. And just like you saw previously with the view options, Sketch Engine likes to look for things in the middle, i.e. the keyword in context, or the first word to the left and the first word to the right. And again, I've got a number of options. The word forms, which includes all forms of the word that I might search for. The part of speech tags and the lemmas. Let's keep it simple here and look at word forms. And remember that I'm conducting a wildcard search here, so the data star. I can then get some information about the raw frequency of hits. So the data with a full stop appears to me the most frequent, followed by the data comma, the data is, the data from, the data was, the data and, the data collected, and so on. The raw frequencies are displayed in descending order. And then some information about the relative or normalized frequency in the corpus, if that information is going to be useful for you. I can then go ahead and access concordances containing just the results for these. For example, the data collected. By clicking on the three dots here, and clicking only this. This then brings up the results for the data collected only, of which I believe there were 25. So that's all of them. So I'm gonna head back there and go back to my frequency list. And maybe this time we'll have a look at the first word to the right of what I was looking for. And again, I'm just going to click word forms here. I can see that it would be the data something the. Not so useful when I'm doing a wildcard search, but maybe here the data was collected. Could be this option here. There we go. The data we collected, data was collected, the data were collected, and so on. So let's see now if you can have a quick play with this. What I'd like you to do is to go back to the concordance option. And we're going to just conduct a basic search for a term of your choice. Maybe I'll give you an idea. We'll have something like the data star, okay? So I want everybody to search for that. Oh no, because we already did that one. So we're gonna have the results star, okay? And what I want you to do then is to go into the data and find the most frequent word that's going to fill that star slot in the corpus. So I'll just give you 5 minutes to try to do this. And then at the end of that time, I'll just ask the audience to see what answer you managed to get. So just check that out for yourselves. Go back to the concordance function by just clicking over here, enter the results star, click search, and then try to find the most frequent word that is going to fill that slot. Let's try it together. So we're just taking you through that procedure one more time. I've got my wildcard search, the results. I'm going to click search. I've got my concordances. And then I'm going to head up to the frequency option. I'm interested in the word forms. And I can see here that the most frequent word that fills that star slot is the results of. Other results include the results obtained, the results show. Most of these are function words, but if I can do a search later on for part of speech, which is a little more complicated, I could search for verbs in that slot. But I believe that you covered part of speech searches in the previous sessions. Another option you might be interested in with frequency in the Sketch Engine platform is to look at the advanced frequency options, which work a little bit differently. For this, I'm not going to use a wildcard option. I'm just going to search for the term, the results. I'm going to go back into the frequency tool again. And this time I'm going to click the Advanced tab here. And now I can search using this kind of approach for the words that are going to appear before the term results or after the term the results. And I can do this by selecting the number. So selecting the number 1 here should give me the word that appears after the results. And I can see here that I'm able to replicate that same result that I got with the wildcard previously, the results of, the results are, and so on. But the interesting thing that I can do with that again, with using that advanced function, is to start to build longer and longer sequences so that I can start to understand some of the phraseology that's associated with this expression. So I've got here, I'm interested in the first word, but now I'm also interested in the word after that one and the word after that. 1, 2, 3. Now I can see the most frequent 3 grams or 3-word combinations that are going to come after the results. So again, now we're starting to enter into the phraseology of the corpus. The results show that the, and then whatever comes after the. And then, of course, I can access the concordances that contain that information by clicking on the 3 dots. You can see here the filters that have been applied. And then I've got my results here that I can then download using the download function for whatever purpose that I'm trying to use this data for. So this kind of approach has been termed in the research literature pattern hunting, in that I'm consulting a corpus. I don't yet know the linguistic patterns that appear in that corpus, but I want to learn them. So I might use some of these concordancing or frequency options to be able to extract some of these hidden patterns in the corpus and make that data more salient to myself as the researcher, language teacher, or the language learner, whatever role I'm playing today, whatever I'm using this corpus to do. Let's practice that with another expression. Again, we'll just go through and just repeat what we were trying to do. So instead of the data, the results, let's see what the participants maybe. Let's see. I'm going to search for the participants. I'm going to go over here to the frequency box. I'm going to make sure that I'm working with the advanced tab. And then I'm going to look for the most frequent 3-word combination. That's going to come after the participants. And here is the result. And notice that the frequency is really quite small in the corpus. There's a number of reasons for this. One is that the British Academic Written English corpus is not a particularly large corpus. It's just under 7 million words, which sounds like a lot, but it's actually not that much when we start to get longer and longer expressions. And usually, once you're getting to like the 7 or 8 or 9 word level in the queries that you're trying to make, you might only get 1 hit or 2 hits at most in a corpus of this size. So it's best to limit your queries to smaller chunks when you're doing some pattern hunting. But here I can see that the term the participants, using that frequency option to build the phrase, I can see here the participants were asked to is the most frequent construction of that type. And again, I can bring up the concordances. And there I have that data to use for whatever purpose it is that I'd like to use it for. An additional function of the Sketch Engine platform, which I'm going to demonstrate here then, is the word list function, just very briefly. And this is another great way to find patterns, particularly at the lexical level. In the corpus that I'm trying to use, I'm going to keep it simple and just search for all the words in the corpus, and it will generate a word list of those. Ordered by frequency, of course, you get your function words, punctuation that are going to be most frequent. So nothing particularly interesting there. But I can start to see some other less function words here that are very frequent in the corpus. For example, time, adjectives, different, some conjunctions, therefore, nouns like social, or adjective social, sorry. And then I could start to do a search for the concordances containing these words. So for example, the noun system there is very frequent in the corpus data. I can then go ahead and have a look at the concordance options containing the word system just from that word list. So if I'm really interested in the frequency of the words across the whole corpus, that word list function is something that you might want to check out. However, I'm not going to spend too much time on that today. Now, one of the best uses, or one of the main uses certainly of the BAWE corpus for myself, is that, yes, the corpus of academic writing, but it is annotated for a number of different metadata. Metadata is just the kind of clever word for information about where a particular concordance comes from. So is it taken from, say, an essay or a report? Is it taken from a particular disciplinary area? Is it taken from a particular genre? And so on. And this is something that the Sketch Engine platform is really useful for. So let's go ahead and jump back into the concordancing option. We're just going to stick to a basic search here. And what I'm interested in, let's choose the word perhaps, well, reason. Okay, just as a random example. And then I've got the ability here to click this little down arrow that is going to give me some different options as to which area of the corpus that I'm studying in. So the ones that we're going to look at today that we have time to look at now are genre, discipline group, and discipline. So I mentioned before that the BAWE corpus has a number of different genres, text taken from different genres. These include case study, critiques, design specifications, which are quite common in the sciences, essays, exercises, explanations, literature surveys, methodology recounts, narrative recounts, problem questions, proposals, and research reports, and combinations of these. But let's say I'm not interested in essays, but I am interested perhaps in critiques. I can now limit my search to that genre so that when I click search, I can now see that the text type filter has been applied, and I'm only looking at results from critique. So that there is what we are looking for. And then if I want to remove this filter, go back to where I was, take it out, and search within a different one. Maybe in this case, the design specification. I can see here that the term reason doesn't appear nearly as often in design specifications as it did in critiques. So if I'm interested in genre-specific vocabulary, this might be a good place to start your investigation. So that's the text type search. Let's now think about disciplinary group. Let's try a scientific term, perhaps particle. And now I'm interested in the discipline group. There are 4 options within discipline groups within this corpus, namely AH, which is short for Arts and Humanities, LS, which is short for Life Sciences, PS, which is short for Physical Sciences, and SS, which is short for Social Sciences. Remember here, I'm searching for particle, which is quite a scientific term, but let's see how frequently it appears in the Arts and Humanities subcorpora. I can see that it appears 34 times, or with a normalized frequency of 4.08 per million tokens. Now, if I go back and search again, but maybe this time within the Physical Sciences or PS, I can now see that that term is much more frequent in the Physical Science subcorpora than it was in the Arts and Humanities subcorpus, appearing this time 55.78 per million tokens, a substantial increase. What if I wanted to get more specific, however? Again, if I'm interested in the term particle, but this time I'm interested in the specific discipline. And there are a large number of disciplinary annotated tags within the Sketch Engine BAW platform, including agriculture, chemistry, computer science, history, linguistics, sociology, and so on. So the term particle may have one sense in linguistics. For example, here the term adverbial particle, modal particle. Particles replace tenses as time markers in pidgin languages. So there is a particular sense of particle here as a linguistic feature. But if I want to see how the term particle is used in physics, I might then get a sense of its use in a different sense at the physical level. For example, here, photoelectric absorption is where a gamma ray interacts with a particle and disappears. So that was text types, disciplinary groups, disciplines, and text genres. Why don't you take a couple of minutes just to practice searching for yourself using the text types function? Choose a word that you think might be different in one discipline versus another. Check its normalized frequencies and check the different senses of that term by reading the concordance lines and using the frequency tool to discover some of the patterns in which that word appears. For example, what if I'm interested in how women are portrayed in my corpus within the physical sciences or the life sciences? Women here are appearing 47.02 times per million tokens. And a number of these are reporting on data produced by women or experiments that women are involved in. Going back though and switching disciplinary group to say social sciences, I will then get a diverse set of results. The term women appears far more frequently in the corpus, and the term implications for women seems to pop up quite a lot. Going back to that frequency tool, we could use the advanced function that I showed you previously to bring up some of the patterns. When I'm using the left function, I want to be doing this way, 3, 2, 1. So this is giving me the 3 word combinations that appear before the term women in my data set, restricted to the arts and humanities, the social sciences. And I can then check those concordances and see that the term appears. I found that pattern here in my corpus. Violence against women appears very frequently in my social sciences corpus there. One last function then of the sketch engine platform, the BAWE that we've got time to look at today, is the word sketch and word sketch difference functions. Let's have a look at these. And these are kind of unique as far as I'm aware to the sketch engine platform and its baby brother, the sketch engine for language learning platform, or SKEL, which I don't have time to demonstrate today, but this is something that you can Google for yourself, and I've just typed in the name there into chat. So word sketches work primarily on lemmas, which I explained before are the base form of the verb, which is why sometimes you might search for a word and it doesn't work. It's because you have to use the base form. So for this, I'm going to use the term particle. And I've now got a whole lot of information automatically generated by the word sketch that is separated out into different, what they call grammatical relations. So this includes modifiers of the term particle, terms where the term particle is used as the object of that clause, or in case it's, say, a noun phrase. Preposition phrases, terms where it's the subject of the clause, or where it modifies. It takes a little bit of time to understand what the little grammatical relation tags actually mean. But one of the more recent things that they've introduced within this platform is that it gives you the examples here in the black text. So that helps you understand a little bit easier what these different phrases are. So for example, here, the modifier one is looking at the adjectives that come before the noun particles. So here, elementary particles, charged particles, silica particles, fluid particles, virus particles, and so on. Or as a modifiers, we've got here particle accelerator, particle physics, particle physicists, particle trajectories, and so on. And then, of course, as with all of the other concordance options, I can click the three little dots. That is then going to take me to those concordances for here, particle accelerator. And there were 6 results in the corpus for particle accelerator. So this is a great way for finding patterns in the corpus data on a kind of large scale with lots of different kind of options. If you really have a particular word and you're really not sure about how that word is used within this corpus, using this word sketch function is a really powerful tool to help you understand all of the different words and the different kind of grammatical structures that your target word appears in. So go ahead and have a play with this right now with a word of your own. I've chosen particle. Let's go back to the word sketch option and now just type in any word that you think you might want to have a play with. And see how you go. I'm going to choose a different term here. For no apparent reason at all, I'm going to search for the term shark. Maybe I'm thinking about life back home in Australia. And I see here that shark appears 36 times. And these are the different terms that appear with the word shark. Active sharks, shark sightings, shark cage diving, ample sharks, sharks and swordfish, sharks and tuna, sharks and turtle, and so on. So that's the word sketch function. There's another final function of Sketch Engine that I'm going to demonstrate, which again you might find useful. And this is the word sketch difference function. What this does is it allows you to compare 2 words this time and the different environments in which those words appear. I've only got time today to discuss the basic option. So let's choose 2 words that are usually used in opposition with each other. For example, man and woman. And let's see how these words are used differently in the corpus. You can see here that the different words that appear with man and women and the different grammatical relations in which these words appear are now color-coded. So words that are strongly associated with the word man appear here in the darker green color. And words that are strongly associated with the term woman appear in the darker red color. And I can click on the little down arrow there to extend that list to its fullest. So this is the and/or relation. So it would give me results for man and God, or man or God and man, or God or man. And you can see here that the strongest association is with the word God. And again, I can bring up that concordance line, man and God and men, gods and men, man and God, and so on. Lots of different results there for that construction. Similarly, for females, girl, war, family, minority seem to come up fairly frequently. We look here at woman and family, for example. The role of women and family, women or the family as units in welfare regime analysis. Early English settlements contained few women or families, and so on. And I can go down here and have a look at the different options. Where there is a white color, basically means that there's no real preference for that word to appear with the term man or woman. It's kind of and somewhere in the middle. But the green ones occur only with man and not with woman. And the red ones occur only with woman and not with man. Try it for yourself. Search for two words that you think might be found in opposition with each other. Try to discover more about how those words are used. For example, chicken and egg. Boy and girl. Cats and dogs. You can get really tricky and start to use word forms or subcorpora. So for example, if I want to look at the term believe in the arts and humanities disciplines and compare that with the use of the term believe in the physical sciences, if I'm doing a little bit of disciplinary explanation, I can select that advanced option and it will give me the results with the green representing the arts and humanities disciplines texts and the red representing the physical sciences related texts. There doesn't seem to be many results for the term believe in the physical sciences, which is also quite useful information in of itself. So there we go. I'm noticing some questions come through in the chat because I think I am a bit pushed for time. I'm going to leave them to the end. I've now finished my demonstration of Sketch Engine. I'll very briefly have a quick look now at the MyCus platform, just to have a look at some of the alternatives of using a different tool. Potentially you've got a different research question. It's based on an American corpus of academic written English and is a good alternative to the British academic written English corpus if that's something that you might want to look at. So this is the MyCus platform. And I've just pasted the link there into the chat so you can have a look at that. And again, it's a fairly simple, free online platform that allows you to conduct disciplinary queries across different genres and different disciplines. And interestingly, with this corpus, and although you do have the option to do this with the British Academic Written English corpus, is that you can also compare texts produced by so-called native English speakers and so-called non-native English speakers as well, if this is something that you're interested in doing. In order to search for anything, I think you can see here some of the things that my children are searching for, like roadblocks or mochis. Let's try here that old term that I was looking for in the BAWE corpus, their particle. I'm going to search across the whole corpus. Now, what the MyCos platform is allowing us to see here are some slightly different options regarding concordances and the disciplinary distribution of these terms. So one good thing about MyCos is it really lets you see a lot of the context, including this part, like the whole paragraph in which that given term appears. And this is very useful for people who want more context to help them understand how the word is used in that context. Whereas in Sketch Engine, you're typically limited to the whole sentence at the most, or that keyword in context view with the context to the left or to the right. But you don't get too much information in that. MyCos, however, is giving you the whole paragraph in which that term appears. And it also lets you see at a glance the title of the text from where it was taken, the discipline, and the other metadata, including whether it was written by a native speaker and the genre in which that result appears. I can also then see at a glance the distribution across disciplines. Of course, when comparing across different subcorpora, it's always best to search the normalized frequency. So I'm just going to click here per 10,000 words, just to be sure that my comparison across disciplines is fair. And I can see here that the term particle is used quite frequently in CEE, which is Civil and Environmental Engineering. And it also has some use in mechanical engineering, philosophy, but probably in a different sense, and physics. In terms of the genres, I can also see that the term particle is used quite frequently in research papers and reports, but barely features in the other text types. These include argumentative essays, creative writing, response papers, and critiques. These charts are also clickable, which will then filter the results according to the discipline or the genre that I want to click on. So for example, if I'm only interested in reports, I should be able to, or at least used to be able to, click on that one. Maybe you can't do that anymore, but I'll do it here instead for the distribution across disciplines. So this will limit my results to only those from the physics discipline. And now I can see that term particle with the results only from physics. If that's something that I need to see. Vice versa, I can bring up that result between physics and philosophy, or uncheck the physics one and bring up only the results there from philosophy, in which there were just 14 hits in one paper, I believe. You can see here that we brought up basically the entire document here, or all of the different hits in which that term particle appears in that philosophy paper. Try it for yourself. Think of a term that you think might have some disciplinary specificity. I've used the term particle, but maybe try a term that may be less scientific, maybe one that appears in nursing. So let's take, for example, care. I've still limited the search here to philosophy by mistake, so I just unchecked that. And the term here occurs 1,060 times in my corpus, in 193 papers. Again, I'm going to bring up the distribution, the normalized distribution across disciplines. And I can see here that far and away, the use of the term care in nursing is absolutely huge compared to its use in the other disciplinary areas. I can also see that it is most frequently distributed in the report genre, together with some use in proposals and research papers, and in some cases, argumentative essays. So again, a pretty useful tool there for those of you interested in conducting disciplinary corpus queries across genres and disciplines. Another interesting drop down here is the textual features one, which allows you to limit searches to the abstract discussions of results, for example, the literature review, methodology section. If you're interested in comparing the use of a given term across different sections of research papers or reports. So for example, if I'm interested in the use of the term care in the methodology section, I can select that. That is then only going to give me results from the methodology section. At the very least. And you can see these are taken from proposals, research papers, and more. Okay, so that was the MyCups tool. I've got time now to show you final tool for today, which is the tool that I developed with Diponegoro, who is also one of the developers of the sketch engine tool. And I've just posted the link here for you. This tool will be the simplest of the ones that I've used today. And that is for a reason, because this tool is primarily to be used by language learners and teachers, particularly those at the lower level tertiary or upper level secondary school. The Corpus-based platform is composed of corpora, including the BAWE that we already played with today in the sketch engine platform, as well as a corpus of TED Talks, so introducing some spoken data here, the simple English version of the Wikipedia, which if you don't know is like a separate version of Wikipedia containing articles that are written as simply as possible for younger readers or second language users. So we have that entire corpus there in this platform. transcriptions of learning videos taken from the BBC Teach website, an open access corpus called the Elsevier Open Access Corpus, which is a collection of 40,000 scientific articles, and the BNC 2014 Spoken, which is a large collection of samples of contemporary British English, and this is all spoken data. So you can see here the basic breakdown of the corpus data by tokens and number of documents, with the simple wiki being the largest, followed by the Elsevier corpus, British National Corpus, BAWE, TED, and BBC, for a total of 50 million tokens in total, which are then divided up into 20 topic or discipline areas, including culture, arts and music, society, technology, biology, history, physics, law, and so on. We also have a split of written and spoken data, with the written corpus being about twice as large as that of the spoken corpus. But again, when you're doing queries by topic or queries by modality, by register, the results that you get in the end are normalized so that you can meaningfully compare them despite the differences in token sizes across the corpus. So let's have a play with it now. And let's have a look at some concordances. Let's choose the term assess, for example. And I'm not going to select any topic. I'm not going to select whether it's written, spoken data. But the difference here between the concordances that I'm looking at in Corpus Mate and the concordances that I was looking at in Sketch Engine are related to the organization of the concordances. And instead of the context to the right being sorted by alphabetical order as it was in Sketch Engine, we've taken the option that is also found in Lawrence Anthony's latest version of AntConc, the version 4.0, to organize the concordances not by alphabetical order, but to order them in order of the most frequent three-word construction that appears after your query term. So in my corpus, the term assess the impact of is the most frequent hit in the corpus. Assess the effect of is the second most frequent hit in the corpus. Assess the quality of is the third most frequent hit in the corpus, and so on. Now, to prevent the most frequent hits taking up the whole page, we've got them hidden behind the little arrow here on the right. By clicking the arrow, I can then see the results for that most frequent of hits. In this case, assess the impact of. And they're all here. But if we don't hide them originally, it can be too many to scroll through, and it can take up the whole page. The page only shows the first 250 results from all 5,000 because usually as a language learner, you don't need 5,000 results. You just need a couple of hundred in order to be able to do your investigation. As with Sketch Engine, I can also copy the results to the clipboard by simply pressing the button here, loading that up in Excel, and pasting the results. So I've now got those queries there, those concordances in that Excel file. As a language teacher, I might be interested in producing some teaching materials whereby I'm interested in doing a gap fill, for example. So if I want to do that, I can click the hide quick function here, and that will get rid of that word. And I can use this then to generate teaching materials by copying the results to the clipboard. Maybe I want to open this up in Word. Copy and paste. It hasn't copied the impact of the ones that I wanted. It's just given the basics there. So maybe that's a bug in the platform that I need to discuss with the programmer. But at the very least, I can still get those concordances into Word or into Excel if I need to use them. Or alternatively, I can print this as a PDF, and that will then contain all of the words there with the quick form hidden if I want to use some of these for the gap fill activity later on. Let's head back now and have a look at some of the other query options, of which there are 3. So we're going to have the wildcard function. This time we're going to use the star. And I've now got the answers there with the star, which is going to give me a different set of results here. Assess the extent to which. And I can now get all of those results. So pattern hunting in Corpus Main is a lot simpler than it was in Sketch Engine, where you have to click multiple times to get to the patterns. Now the patterns are revealed. If I click the compare results function here, though, I can then get that information in a more visual format, including the relative percentage of a given expression within my data set, again, allowing me to see the patterns in the data at a glance. So I can see assessed by, assessed using, assessed whether. Then these are all clickable. This will then give me to assess whether there was a significant interaction. The deeper you go, the fewer hits you're likely to get. But at the very least, I was able to get to that construction assess whether using the wildcard option. 2 other options include the question mark, which let me see whether a word is needed. So for example here, I could say a big deal. Put the question mark after that. This will then allow me to compare the results with big and without big. Again, looking at the compare results function, I can see that the term a deal appears fairly frequently, as does a big deal. And I can then see the results. This is useful also for searching for words that students usually add to expressions. So one of my favorite is emphasize on. I find that students often use the expression, I wish to emphasize on the fact, or I want to emphasize on this, and we're not sure whether on is needed, I can search for that, press compare results, and I can see that emphasize appears very frequently. Emphasize on the other hand, appears very infrequently. So the chances are that I shouldn't be using on with this expression. Final option then is the slash. This lets you compare two different results. So for example, I might want to say in a or in the way. This then provides both options. By pressing compare results, I can then compare the different expressions. It seems that both of them feature in my corpus. And then I can click to in a way or go back to in the way. Another tool then is the pattern finder. But before we do that, let me show you some of the concordancing options within Corpus Mate. Just searching for that term assess again. On the quick view, something that is useful with Corpus Mate is that the results are clickable and they take you again to that metadata for the thing that you're searching for. So in this case, it will give me the title of the file in which the term appears, the corpus from which the concordance is found, the topics from which that particular file was flagged using some natural language processing techniques. And importantly, if it's taken from one of the academic corpora, I can click here to get the citation for that file from Google Scholar, which is particularly useful for people who are looking for examples from genuine academic writing. And then they can go ahead and find that paper and know that that paper exists. Similarly, for any word that you might want to be searching for, I can click here to see translation and pronunciation options. By default, it is set to Chinese, but you can set it to other languages. Let's find our language for today. Find the term assess and see that there are various translations here for that. Probably this second one here. So that's a unique option there for Corpus Mate. Let's switch now to sentence mode. And as with the quick mode, you can click the terms to see where the result came from. And you can also see at a glance the topic and the register. But as we saw with the MyCusp one, sometimes one sentence of context isn't enough. So by clicking on the expand button, I am able to provide more and more information for a given concordance. I believe that you can click up to 6 times before it reaches its limit. And I can do this for any concordance. Let's finish off today then by just looking at the distribution options. Going back to Corpus Mate and our old friend particle, I have the ability to search or limit my searches or concordances to any of the 20 topic areas that the corpus is annotated for. So if I want to search just in physics, I can do that. Or if I want to search for pronouns in spoken data, I have the ability to do that as well, just by clicking on the drop downs. And there we are. Then if I'm interested in the distribution of a term in the corpus, I can click the distribution by topic tab. And this will give me some information about the relative percentage of the use of a term across my subcorpora. So I can see that the term assess is used very frequently in psychology, engineering, health and medicine, geography, physics, and society. So anywhere where you've got this kind of blue bar lets you know that that term is more frequently used within that disciplinary area. And then with the red bar, the longer it is, it shows that that term is not really found in that disciplinary area at all. So the term assess, for example, doesn't seem to appear very often in journalism or science or mathematics. I can also see at a glance the written spoken distribution. And again, this is normalized by percentage. So even though the written corpus is obviously much bigger, the spoken corpus has good representation because you're comparing by percentage and not just the raw frequency. But I can see that the term assessed is more likely to be used in written data. So that's pretty much it. Just before I wrap up, I'm just going to give you the links to some free resources alongside the free tools that I've shown you today. In particular, my training course, which has just recently been upgraded to include Corpus Mate in some of the activities. This course is called Improving Writing Through Corpora, and it's free for signing up through the edX platform. All you need is an edX account, which again is free to sign up. And this is a 5-module or 8-hour training course on the basics of Sketch Engine and Corpus Mate, primarily for academic writing and for error correction as well. So do check that out. If you manage to complete all the modules of that course, you will receive a certificate of completion from the University of Queensland. So that might be something interesting for you. Secondly, for those language teachers among you, we've also released this free ebook recently that everybody can use, which contains 14 ready-made lesson plans using a range of corpora, including Sketch Engine, Skell, BNC, CQP Web, and so on. It contains information about the description of the plan. There are lessons for language learners at each level. There are some lessons that are for languages other than English, for example, Spanish and Portuguese. There are videos that explain what you need to do with the Corpus tools, information about the plan itself in printable format, including the objectives and the procedures, the specific lesson plan development and the timings of the activities are also contained. And there are both hands-on and hands-off versions of the lesson activities. By hands-on, we mean that the students in the class have access to corpora devices that allow them to consult corpora, but each lesson also has a hands-off version where if the students don't have access to computers or the internet, then at least the teacher can help control the activities by maybe printing out some of the concordances that can be downloaded from this book. The activities themselves can also be completed using the text boxes here that allow them to check their answers to the various activities. So do look out for that. Finally, if you'd like to learn more about Corpora for language learning, what I'd like you to do is to visit this website, which contains 30 videos by myself and some of the best presenters in the field on the use of Corpora for Corpus technology for language learning. There are 30 videos there from various speakers from around the world, and we're just about to put a book together with some of the contributors, as well as inviting reaction chapters from the audience as well. So that's a really novel and exciting idea that I think is going to be a first for the Corpus Linguistics community. But I'm going to wrap up here and thank the organizers for their time, and to now invite some time for questions and answers. So I'm just going to stop the sharing of the screen here and hand back to you. Now, I'm going to try and go back and see if there were some of these questions that came through in the chat. I'll answer the ones that I'm able to answer with the time I have left. So, do we need to log into Sketch Engine? Already said no. Asma, what's the best way to store Corpus data from the Sketch Engine? So that one you do really need to log in to Sketch Engine to be able to store the data from there. You can set up, I believe, a trial account for 30 days for free that I think will allow you to do that. Beyond that, you might have to pay some money, but for those of you who are serious about Corpus Linguistics research, it might be a good option for you, especially as it allows you to upload your own corpora and build your own corpora. And there are some really useful and fantastic corpora available for query behind that, but I don't work for them. But yeah, it's a great resource, and I hope that if that's something you might want to try. Another question from Asma says, can you please explain the difference between concordance and frequency list tools? Well, concordance tool, but there's no such thing as a concordance tool and frequency list tool. Just the concordance function and frequency list function is found within most Corpus tools. So Sketch Engine allows you to look at concordances and generate frequency lists. Corpus Mate allows you to look at concordances and generate frequency lists. CQP Web allows you to do these things as well. So I hope that clears up any confusion that you have. Question here from Userea. Can we search for adjectives in sequence? For example, 2 to 3 adjectives in sequence? Yes, you can. For this, you will need to use part of speech tag options that I didn't have time to go into today, but do have a play with Sketch Engine or CQP Web, and that's something that you can do. And that's one of the great strengths of using Corpus Linguistics for that kind of question. And Liliana asks, is it possible to select a specific genre in the sections? I believe it will be, yes. You always have in Sketch Engine the option to further complexify, I guess, for want of a better word, the different queries that you're making. So you can search by discipline first and then search by genre as an additional filter. You just basically stack these different query options together. And I didn't have time to show you that today, but that's something that can be done fairly easily. Luciana says, do we know how these texts are classified into these genres? On larger corpora, they kind of use natural language processing techniques to like topic modeling to work out how the texts are classified into, say, discipline or genre. For example, we did that with Corpus Mate, where we automatically, semi-automatically, were able to identify which discipline a given text was classified into, together with some manual checking. I believe in the sketch engine platform for the BAWE though, that classification was done manually, as far as I know. So that is pretty interesting. Asma asks, can you show us how annotation works in sketch engine? The answer is no, because actually I think that's a new function. And even I have never used that function in sketch engine. So right now I know as much as you about how that works, but do have a play with it. I'm sure that that's something that you can have a look at. Another question from Asma about MyCusp. Is it only used on written data? I believe yes, it is. But CorpusMate has both written and spoken data, and the sketch engine also has the British Academic Written English Corpus as well as the British Academic Spoken English Corpus, and you can compare the two. Asma asks, is CorpusMate always to be freely accessible for teachers and researchers in the future around the world? And is yes, it is. That's exactly what it is for. Intan, if our students make a word combination but they do not use frequency words, we can consider this as an error word combination. This is actually a great point. And I just want to go back to this in CorpusMate. So if I say assessly, which we know is not a word, I made sure that in CorpusMate, I explain why you don't get a given result sometimes. So it says here, sorry, no results found. This might be because A, your search was spelled incorrectly. Your search may have a grammar or vocabulary error. Therefore, you may need to think about how to rewrite your search to get more results. Also, it could be that it is not used in your selected topic area, or maybe it is not found in spoken data, for example, if it's a term that's only found in written data, or vice versa. So I did make sure in CorpusMate that the user got some information about why they might not find a given search in the corpus. So just a little bit about that there. A few more questions. Where are we? Okay, I think I'm up to user area. How can we get frequencies about types of sentences used in a text like simple or complex or compound? So for that, you need to use some natural language processing applications. It's something that this corpus data will not, these corpus tools that I've shown you today will not give you that information because they don't have the ability to search for that information within that corpus data. So what you'll need is the actual corpus itself in text format, or however you get that data, and then to run some natural language processing applications, maybe in R, maybe using some other tools that will allow you then to get information about those frequencies. So maybe like the Biber tagger or the Andrea Nini's multidimensional analysis tagger, for example, they will give you that information. TAAT, I believe, TAAT says, can the relative frequencies displayed by the corpus be read and interpreted critically? For example, the relative frequency of terms like Muslim woman or halal can be used to describe a particular representation. The answer is yeah, absolutely. That's what we use the frequency information to do. Just knowing the frequency doesn't tell you anything, but it's why is something more frequent or less frequent? Why does this word appear very often in this corpus? Why does it not appear very often in that corpus? And all of the presenters that are on this program will all tell you the same thing. And particularly for use, for example, in corpus-assisted discourse studies, like Paul Baker or Robbie, who was here on Monday, or any of the other speakers that are here this week. That's the kind of research that they do. They look at how these words are represented across different subcorpora, and they try to tell you and understand what that frequency information means and what it represents. So that's basically corpus-assisted discourse studies right there. Nugra Hanning Tias, apologies if I pronounced that wrong. could you briefly share learning activities you've implemented? And as I said, I just showed you there that textbook, the language learning textbook there, which again, I will just very briefly link here in the chat, just in case you missed that the first time. So I'll just bring that up in the chat right there for you. And there it is. Where are we at? We're almost done. Tama, how do we get frequencies about English or Indonesian news? Again, best person to ask here will be our wonderful host Pri, who has developed Indonesian corpora and knows where to find and access them. So I'll let him chip in towards the end. And then again, Dr. Mian Basha, do these search engines have data on South Asian languages, especially on Pashto? The best place will be to have the paid version of Sketch Engine. Sketch Engine, I believe, has probably the best selection of corpora from languages other than English. And I assume they will have a Pashto corpus. If not, then maybe some great researchers can develop a Pashto corpus and upload it to Sketch Engine. And then everybody then has the ability to use it. And I believe, and Pri has also just given the answer to the previous question about Indonesian news, and it's there on CQP Web. Is asking about corporate on world Englishes and post-colonial Englishes. The answer is yes, there are many of them. There may be some in CQP Web, there may be some in Sketch Engine, or you can contact the researchers who work on those areas, and they may be happy to share those corpora with you. But I believe that is all the time I have today. So I'm just going to wrap it up here and thank the audience for being so patient. And I hope that that was of interest and useful for you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Peter Crosswhite, for your excellent presentation. The session was fun and insightful, and everyone, of course, enjoyed the session. Before we leave the meeting, we'd like to inform you a few things, so please, for all the participants to pay attention. First, we have distributed the attendance list for the session. If you have not marked down your attendance, please do so. But don't worry, we will let the form open for a few more minutes. So please fill it as soon as possible. Second, if you still have any question for our keynote speaker, or if there is any question left unanswered, you can let us know and we will forward your question to our keynote speaker. Alternatively, you can email our keynote speaker directly because the email is present in the CV. The third, make sure to always check Deep Schooling Google Drive folder because the material from all the keynote speakers from day 1 to day 3, the link to the recording of the past session have been incorporated.
Tomorrow, we will have sessions on the collocations, which will be brought to you by Carolina Denistia, PhD from UNS Indonesia. See you tomorrow and enjoy the rest of the day. Goodbye and thank you so much for Mr. Peter Crosswhite. And thank you so much, Cindy Rohma, as my partner MC. And goodbye, Mr. Prihantoro. And thank you for joining this event in the day 3. See you.
Thank you, everybody. All the best. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Bye for now.
Thanks, Peter. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
All right. See you tomorrow, everyone. See you, Miss Salma.
See you, Dr. Bachan.
See you, Andrew. See you, Anna.
See you, Surya. See you, Tongxia.
See you, everyone. Have a nice day.